Hey, this is Rich over at TVP Live with another quick tips tutorials brought to you by Adobe Photoshop Elements Tutorials Group. And let's jump right into today's poster. Wanted to know how to change an image, which is this thistle, into a vector image, also known as an SVG, which stands for Scalable Vector Graphic. That's something that Adobe Illustrator can read and printers can use to print on jackets and labels and stickers and things like that. So let's jump right in. We got our original image here, we got Adobe Photoshop Elements here, and then we got Adobe Illustrator here. Let's start by bringing in the original graphic, and it's going to come in. Now you see the size is like 28.5 inches by 21 inches. That's nice and big, so we don't have to expand it. If it was down like at 3 or 6 inches, I'd want to expand it to about 50 inches to work with it, because that way you can do all these curvatures a little easier. Now, if you notice something when you look at the picture, you can see something wrong with it. And what it is that when you zoom in, you can see all the lines of resolution. So it's really, really low scaled, and we're going to have to fix that a little bit. So the first thing I would do is I would add a filter to it. So let's go ahead and go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and you see it just softened it up a little bit. That's set at a radius of 0.5. Let's change that to a 0.1. Now when I preview this and go back and forth here, I can toggle it. You can see it softened up all those lines of resolution and brought back the softness of the image. So we're going to leave that at 1% or pixels. Hit OK. We can come back out and you can see it's nice and soft. I might want to add a little bit of color to that. So I'm going to go to Enhance, Color, Adjust Hue and Saturation, and then bring the saturation down or bring it up to make those colors really vibrant like that. That looks good at about plus 24%. I'll hit OK. Now, the magic tool normally might work, but in this case, I don't think it's going to work very well. I'm going to set that to 50% tolerance, because watch what happens. You see the jaggedy lines? It doesn't know what it wants to pick. So if I hit delete, look at that. That's a mess. So the magic tool is really not a very good tool for this case. So what I think is the best thing to do is to actually do it physically by hand and cut it out. In the past, I would use the eraser, a soft eraser, and carefully erase around. But because you're going to be making a vector graphics, you want sharp edges everywhere throughout your whole image. In this case, I'm going to use the polygon tool and leave it at the polygon. Don't go to lasso, go to polygon down here. Let's cut in close. This is going to take a little bit of time, but it's really worth it when it's done. And basically we're going to cut it out, but what we want to make sure is that those edges between the green and the blue, there's like almost a blackish. So you want to make sure to not catch any of that. Otherwise it's going to show in your final image. So stay within the green and cut well within it. So I'm going to start over here and go like this and carefully cut it out. And you can see I'm leaving some of that green on the edge, and it's okay if you lose a little bit of it, because you know what the audience doesn't know what's missing, they don't know anyway. So just go ahead and cut your whole thing out and be careful with it. And I'm clicking with the left mouse button little by little as I go along the whole image. Once you get to the end here of this first piece, I'm going to double click. It gives us the marching ants. You can see on the edge on the outside that I'm leaving the green on the edges, and that's okay. I'm going to right click here and I'm going to hit copy. And basically it just made a new layer. If I turn off the back layer, look how clean this layer is. It's much cleaner than if you were to try to use the magic tool. Let's go ahead and do the next piece. I'll turn the background back on, choose the background, and we're going to pan over to the right and cut this one out. The poster had already tried doing the jagged lines, and that's what he took a photo of. And that's okay. We're going to take the polygon tool and just cut well within those lines, and we'll be able to keep those jaggedy lines out. And when you get to the end, double click, right click, and hit copy. And that just made us another layer. Once again, go to the bottom layer, click the bottom layer to choose it, and we'll just go ahead and cut out the center portion. I'm going to zoom in so I can get really close. I'm going to start at this corner here and carefully cut the whole item out. And once I get close to the bottom where I started here, I'm just going to double click to close the marching ants. I can zoom out a little bit, and right click and hit copy, and that just created us our third layer. Now I can turn off the background, and what's left is exactly what we wanted to keep, which is just the image. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to delete the background, so I can right click here and hit delete layer. Now all we got is those other three layers in separate pieces. You can save it separately or you can merge them together. So in this case we'll save it separately as a PSD file or Photoshop Elements. So let's go up here to File, hit Save As, and I'm going to hit go to Desktop and hit Thistle and call it Thistle PSD. I'm going to hit save, and the image just popped up right here as a Thistle PSD. So now what we want to do is open up Adobe Illustrator. So let's go ahead and double click on that. And now that we got Illustrator open, just grab our PSD file and just drag it into Adobe Illustrator. It'll ask us a couple of questions here. Do we want to convert into objects? Sure, why not? And hit OK, and it'll open it up in Illustrator. Now that we got it in Illustrator, it actually saved it as three separate pieces. You can flatten it when you open it by hitting flatten, but in this case we'll just leave it as three. All you got to do is come up here and go to File, Save As, and choose Adobe Illustrator, or you can choose SVG in this case, and I'm going to call this Thistle SVG. Hit Save. And boom, it just saved it here. And what happens is it's going to save it as a browser, because if we don't have any programs except for Illustrator that can show it, so it automatically threw it to Edge. So if I minimize Illustrator, double click this, it's going to open up Edge and show it in a browser. You can choose different browsers. Browsers let us look at vector files. I can hit OK, and there it is opened up in Edge. Now all you got to do is create an email, grab this file, drop it in the email, send it off to the printers, and that's all there is to it. And if you don't have Adobe Illustrator, that's okay. Just go to Google and type in PSD to vector images, and that'll take you to some free or low-cost sites where you can do simple transfers to vector images. Well, this is Rich calling it quits for this tutorial, saying over and out.